Hello, Southwest Florida homeowners and homebuyers. Welcome to the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, your go-to source for navigating the vibrant real estate landscape of our beautiful region. I'm your host, Kevin Tremmel, a local real estate agent, leader, and investor here in Southwest Florida. On this podcast, we bring you insights from best in the business, top-notch real estate professionals, seasoned agents, and experts of everything from homeowners insurance to mortgages, maintenance, and repairs. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or a seasoned homeowner, we've got you covered with tips, strategies, and valuable insights to make your journey in Southwest Florida's real estate market a breeze. Get ready to unlock the doors to successful home ownership. This is the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, where we demystify the process, share insider knowledge, and ensure you're well equipped to make informed decisions. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Today, we have David Sterin. He is a realtor in Southeast Florida with the Hayes Company. He has over 6 years of experience and leads a very successful real estate team with his wife called the Ronnie Sterin Group. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Awesome. Well, David, why don't we get started? I think it's always important for the audience to get to know you first. So why don't you kind of share with us your real estate story? How did you get into real estate and why?
I would say it's like how people say that all the greatest inventions happen just by chance. So I think that there was a chance component on all of this, luck component, but also they say that when strategy meets opportunity.
Yeah.
So I have been doing real estate 100% of my time for the last 6 years, I want to say. But before that, reinvented myself a couple of times throughout my life. I was born in Israel. I grew up in Argentina, got a law degree, worked in corporate my whole life in non-legal related matters. So my focus was always marketing, strategic marketing. And so at a given point of my life, I reached this opportunity of either continuing doing marketing and continue doing what I was doing, or just kind of stop everything and go back and restart as a lawyer. And the first alternative sounded much more convincing to me. So I really continued doing marketing for my whole life, continued doing that for about 17 years internationally for large corporations. I really enjoyed it. I became really good at it. But I became less good as time goes by. I became less good with my tolerance to traveling and not being home and living that kind of life, which eventually led to making this decision of stopping my corporate, retiring from that world, and joining forces with my wife, Ronnie, who was actually the creator of our business, and she's the heart and soul. So, she started the activity in 2014. And I jumped the wagons on 2018. So things were moving, business was good, she was growing, and definitely we saw an opportunity for joining forces and getting that 1+1, make it 3 or more. So that is what basically happened. I also saw an opportunity to spend more time local, spend more time with the family, with the kids. And, I miscalculated big time because I said this is also an opportunity to work less, which has not happened. We work more, but it's been great. I mean, it's 6 years in which, I reinvented myself. I got into a new industry in a very challenging environment because many things have happened since 2018. The market has really shifted at a dramatic pace. And also with the challenge of growing a business with your significant other, with whom, you're the whole day together.
Yeah.
So
and then at night after work.
Yeah, I mean, it's before, it's after. So, it's intense. We're both very intense kind of people, and definitely has been successful so far. So absolutely no regrets. We try to enjoy what we do. At the end of the day, I always used to tell my teams, you spend more time of your day working than actually at home or doing your stuff. So you gotta enjoy it, otherwise you will be miserable. And I was very focused on what you have to do always and not always enjoying it. But with real estate, really, I found that there's so much to do. It's endless. When people say, like, David, I want to get into real estate. Okay, so hold on. What do you want to do? people look like, okay, so for me, real estate was kind of showing houses. Well, not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so broad and it's so amazing that you need to find what matches your spirit and your knowledge and your profile and your interests. I think it's a journey.
Yeah, and I was going to ask because, and you kind of brought it up because I feel like a lot of people think that real estate is just showing houses and then like selling. But especially once you lead a team and you've been in business for a while, as you know, the marketing aspect comes in, the financing and like bookkeeping and accounting aspect comes in, and the legal aspect comes in, especially with leading a team or maybe opening a brokerage. So I'm curious to see or to hear from you. I know you said you got a law degree. You spent most of your career or your work life in, international strategy and marketing. So I'd like to know from you how, because at first glance, it might seem like they're unrelated to what you do now, but I'm sure beneath the surface, that experience has helped you a lot. So I would just like to know from you, how has your law degree and your marketing background helped you in joining Ronnie?
I think that anybody in life should have at least three things kind of pinned down.
Mhm.
Basic knowledge of your legal system, basic knowledge of accounting, and basic knowledge of engineering.
Nice. That's not a long list at all.
I
That's
think, and I'm not saying to be an expert, but I think that we should really need to grasp at least the concept of things. I believe that, I became a lawyer in Argentina, so obviously the laws don't apply here,
yeah.
but the process does, and the logic does. And it also gives you a good understanding of processes, of how to structure deals. I went more into the corporate side of law. I don't know if by chance or not, but my whole life I was always in processes that were very consultative, not really transactional, very long cycles of sales of 2, 3, even sometimes 5 years. And that helps you build not just a lot of tolerance to frustration and failure, it helps you create long lasting relationships because, with those people, you need to start and then you need to finish something that is very long lasting. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's even difficult to see the end goal when you start. And it's complex. We are talking about in the security field, you have many moving parts, many different stakeholders to the project. And I don't want to say that selling a house seems like a walk in the park because it is not. It has its own set of challenges. But I am coming from a background of very complex negotiations. So I tend to be very chill when it comes to residential real estate. And I think that calm is king.
Yeah.
You know, I say that I'm a recovered type A.
Mhm.
What you go from this high stress, high endurance all the time to saying, hey, I can just allocate my effort and my attention to things that are really worth it. So I think that again, the law, the corporate, the interactions with the financial world, understanding from a broader perspective, mortgages and financing, and even smaller things, it could be permitting or some title issues, what is a lien, what you can do, what you cannot do. So it all comes to play all together. And I like that.
Yeah.
That's why I always drift more towards the commercial side of the business because those elements are there more on the daily basis.
Yeah.
But I think that it also helps you put together creative solutions. Moreover, nowadays, with prices increasing, with rates increasing, people find challenges on finding financing or they want to buy something without selling. And sometimes suddenly you need to bring a solution to the table. So we have a solid team, and also we have a solid team of ancillary services, people that work with us, very long standing relationships with lenders, with insurance brokers, and we have communication all the time. And we keep up to date with their industry as well. You can miss an opportunity because you don't know of a new type of mortgage,
Yeah.
just to give you an example, or because you don't know the latest and greatest about the insurance companies, which, in Florida is the hot topic.
Yeah, definitely is. Funny that you bring that up. I just got a renewal notice for my insurance on one of my investment properties yesterday via email, and I had to make sure I'm wearing my right contacts because I couldn't believe the number I saw. So yeah, that's definitely
And Ronnie she's very active in the community and in the social aspects, volunteers a lot. And we believe in really giving back and feeding back to that community. And I really see with great concern many things that are happening today. We are getting phone calls of people that bought property a year ago, and nobody advised them of, hey, your insurance is going, your taxes are going to change.
Yeah.
People just buy property by the skin of their teeth. They get their numbers from a lender based on current taxes. Next year, wow,
Yeah.
you double your mortgage payment. Then your insurance increases 20%.
Yeah.
So, and we have these conversations all the time with many stakeholders because things should be done differently.
Yeah, and I mean, if they buy a year ago or 1.5 years ago, I know over on the East Coast, your market's still very strong, but they might even be, depending on how much money they put down, they might even be in a tough situation where they might even be a little upside down on their loan. We definitely had a correction over here on the West Coast, and I've seen that a little bit too, where people bought at the height of the market, military, now 2 years later, they're relocating. I was representing a buyer. We were putting on an offer on one of those situations, and the guy was like, hey, your offer is fair, it's market value, but my clients are going to lose like tens of thousands of dollars once closing costs and commissions are paid. So we can't accept this offer. And yeah, it was just, so you kind of see that more and more. But what I liked, one thing that you brought up was that it sounds like we've been very international, like corporate business environment. And I think one phrase that comes to mind for me is pressure makes diamonds, right? You've worked in that environment for so long. For you, probably, $1 million real estate deal is probably not that much when you were working in international business. I mean, I'm sure you saw a lot higher ticket items than that and a lot more negotiations and that kind of stuff. So I like that. And it definitely helps to be calm in stressful situations. And that's what I strive to do as well for my clients. We had a situation where, the other realtor, I was representing the seller, and the other realtor called me 7 o'clock at night, kind of freaking out, like, hey, the loan's falling through. And, based on my new construction experience, I was just able to ask some very basic questions like, okay, why and what? And, so I was like, well, looks like we can go conventional and just increase the price of the house and give more seller concessions. And then they'll be ratioing again and we'll avoid all that. And he's like, well, I don't know. I'll have to talk to a loan officer. And back to your point, like I hung up from that call and I was so calm because, I knew the next morning I would call the loan officer and everything would be fixed, right? But if I would have called the clients at 8 p.m. at night and been like, oh my God, the loan's falling apart, blah, 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 that obviously doesn't instill confidence in your clients. So
I think that experience comes to fruition in planning, and planning is basically risk mitigation. So you start the relationship with your client, whether he is a buyer or a seller, laying out, the transaction timeline and what is going to happen and what we can expect, what risks are we going to take and what we don't want to take, things that can happen and how we're going to take care of those things when it comes to time. And the second one is, experience also allows you to, I would say experience and specific knowledge comes to fruition on conflict management.
Yeah.
Okay? Because you have one person who is selling an asset and one person that is buying an asset. And obviously, in an arm's length transaction, those are encounter opposite interests. So there is always an underlying level of conflict in any transaction. It can blow up and be a disaster, or could be like a healthy, well-managed process. And I think that ability is something that is super important. You will have to recognize potential conflict and you will have to manage it throughout the transaction. And you need to feel very comfortable in that, especially in Florida. We are transaction brokers for the most part. And that's also something else that people don't really understand. What is the role of your realtor? You meet somebody, you get a Zillow lead, you meet him at the door of the house, and now he's
Yeah.
my realtor and he's going to go fight for me. And,
Yeah.
that is the expectation. So I think that we need to bring not just specific industry knowledge, we also need to bring a lot of transparency. And that is where we become relevant as realtors. And that is when people start seeing the added value. I don't know if you're planning to talk about this or not, but with all the
Yeah, go
change
ahead. Yeah.
and the class action suit and the
Yeah.
settlement and all of that, people are scrambling like crazy, when you kick an ant nest.
Yeah.
And again, I think that for us, it's very important to be very calm. We know that we bring added value to a transaction, and that is where probably all our strategy relies on.
Yeah.
It is for real. We see our transactions going sideways because of lack of good advice and follow-up and management. And listen, yeah, I manage large territories with a lot of millions. But when your $500,000 or your $1 million or your $2 million are your money,
Yeah.
and probably the biggest purchase you will do in your lifetime, so it doesn't matter that I know that it's not that much or I've done bigger deals.
Yeah.
You need to relate to everybody's dollars in the same way. It doesn't matter how many they are.
Yeah, exactly. Because once it's your money, it's a lot more serious than if it's a multi-billion-dollar company's money that's traded on the stock.
You were saving for 10 years for a down payment. You put together your 50 grand, and then they go to hell because somebody messed up on counting days on your contract, and suddenly you're not under inspection period anymore, or your
Yeah.
lender forgot to send a loan commitment and
Yeah.
things like that. And that is a major tragedy. Listen, it is super serious.
Yeah.
Florida, with our palm trees and our relaxed lifestyle and everything, we tend to be everything is going to be okay. And there are certain things that just seriously, it's a formal process.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
formal process and it's very serious, and there are deadlines and time is of the essence. What we say, time is of the essence. Well, it is. And put aside the fact that mostly everything is up for negotiation in a real estate transaction. Well, things don't go well. So you go back to the hard letter of what you signed.
Yeah.
And then you start realizing, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I was never told that. So I
Yeah.
almost probably is not the most popular opinion, but I believe that the entry barrier for realtors should be a lot higher.
I agree. Oh my God. Yeah, I agree so much because you can get into some pretty, like selling the house is one thing, but you can, like what you were bringing up with the contracts, I mean, you can get into some pretty hot waters very quickly for your clients just by missing a day, right? Like, inspection period ends on Thursday or Friday, and you're out playing golf on Friday afternoon and it slips your mind. And I mean, Monday, it's a whole different world on Monday than it was on Friday in regards to that contract. So I definitely agree. And I don't know if it's the same over on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast, but it seems like everybody and their mom and dad and uncles and aunts and in-laws and everybody has a real estate license, right? And I 100% agree it should be a little harder to obtain your license.
I can tell you one thing. After I finished my real estate training, what is it, initial 62, 65?
Yeah, 60 hour, or I think it's even less. Brokerage is 60, no? Isn't initial for sales associates 48 or something?
I don't know. I think a brokerage is 74. But
Okay.
anyway, after I finished that, and then you pass your test. I think that the only thing that I can really remember is how big is an acre.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest of things in that training are very limited to your real life.
Yeah.
And there are areas that really we need a lot more work. There is at least twice a week we are talking to the legal hotline to clarify something. There are a lot of gray areas in the contract for purchase of residential property. What happens with the loan commitments, if it is a full loan commitment, a conditional loan commitment, what happens if it falls through, what happens with the deposit, what happens, like there is a lot of gray areas. There are areas which even are not covered in full by a lender.
Yeah.
So there is a broken interface there as well. And we have like a sort of an army of advisors. We are not lawyers. I cannot practice law in the US. We're very limited on the changes we can do and the advice we can give. But we definitely need to get as much help from those professional areas as possible. Inspections. Inspections is as well. It's a Wild West inspections. They are very professional companies, and there are other inspectors that they just can blow out a transaction out of pure ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mean like just putting too much on the report, or what do you mean on the
No,
inspections?
by not understanding certain things. Now with the roofing situation we have, you need 5 years of remaining life for being in this side, at least in South Florida, to be able to get insurance. But there are inspectors that can come here and just fail a roof that is perfectly good because of, I don't know, some misconception. And
Yeah.
then once things are said to a buyer, are very difficult to correct.
Yeah.
I believe that the whole industry needs to be more professional, or we need to weed out a lot of players that are not really fully committed. As I said, you have very professional inspectors, you have very professional appraisers,
Yeah.
but sometimes you get appraisers that are like $100,000 off.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't know. They don't respond to any of the basic things that you and I know about appraisals.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of it is CYA, cover your
Yeah,
behind,
but you know what? There is, and here is again, when a transaction goes smooth, you don't think about the problems.
Yeah.
But when things go ugly, you better have a good realtor.
Yeah.
It's like you better have a good lawyer or you better have a good brain surgeon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Or both.
you need somebody that will actually have you back.
Yeah, 100%. And one other key takeaway for me so far in our conversation is I need to go back to school and study law, because you said basic understanding of law, accounting, and engineering. So I went to school for finance and accounting and chemistry. So I'm somewhat on the engineering and finance and accounting side, I'm somewhat good. But the law side looks like I need to brush up a little to meet your criteria.
My chemistry is very, very bad. It's more like dark magic.
Yeah, yeah. See what happens. I hear you.
I know a few words like polymeric and
Yeah,
poly.
and that's it. But I'll tell you what.
The chemistry was always a problem for me. No,
But
but seriously, I mean,
I'll tell you what. It's a similar situation for me than it was for you after you graduated. I have not looked in a chemistry textbook, or I have not used anything chemistry related from the day I got my piece of paper that is on my office wall. I've not done anything chemistry related since. So it's very similar to when you got your law degree and went into marketing. So yeah,
I mean, wouldn't you agree that, let's bring it to commercial real estate, okay? But the structuring, the legal structuring from the get-go, from who is going to buy a property, under what legal structure, and the accounting throughout and after, the difference between having to pay a ton of taxes for the appreciation of your real estate towards something that probably you didn't know that you could deduct some expenses, or you could do a 1031, or all those things, or even things like FERPTA. We're in Florida. We have a ton of foreign investors here. People don't calculate that. Then they have delays with their monies. They get withheld, and they were planning on that money for something else. So those are all things that could be prevented with professional advice from the get-go.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, I'm with you. It's definitely helpful, and I learned a lot by just reading a couple contracts for a couple times. And I think that's where you have a big advantage. For me, I need to, some of this legal stuff, I need to read like 2 times to even understand, because it's worded so weirdly, and you're probably like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, okay, okay. So
No, no, no. Listen, everything takes time. Everything takes time. It is not in my mother tongue, so I need to really pay attention to things. And
yeah,
again, I consult a lot with professionals.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's key. And again, it's not to scare people off. I think that there's nothing to be scared of. You can buy, you can sell, you can rent. You just need to understand what you're doing. And probably, I think that the key is, they say, like, people that in somebody's life, death is number one, and then moving is number two in the list of most stressing things that
yeah,
person can do. So I think that our purpose is to remove a lot of that stress.
yeah.
And people just make fun of us, and I make fun of Ron in particular.
Why?
We because we do things like, they're just, sometimes I even really complain about it. But you get to a walkthrough, and then the buyer says, "Oh, but these faucets are leaking," and I'm like, "Okay, hold my beer. You go to Home Depot, you buy a new faucet, you get there, you change it, because if you need to wait for the plumber to come, you will not close that day. Or we have like, what is it called, the gray market of moving boxes. Somebody just moved. They don't know what to do with the boxes. We have somebody who's going to move next week. So we just go fold them all together, put it in the truck, and deliver those boxes to somebody else. And there's little things. They're just little things that you do to allow people to move through the process of buying and selling in a more seamless way.
Yeah, 100%. And the leaking faucet brings up a whole nother topic of as is and, maintenance requirements from the seller and like as is and all that fun stuff. So
wait until we get in the closings of, September, October, after you got hit by a big storm and you need to deal with all those issues as well.
Yeah.
There's another good time to go and refresh what you know about your contract.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good time to take a ethics and law class or something like that. Yeah, 100%. But David, and you speak 4 languages, right? You've had a very diverse upbringing. I mean, it's not uncommon in Florida to speak maybe 2, but 3, 4 is definitely getting up there. So I'd like to kind of know, how does that impact your relationship with your clients, like speaking 4 languages, not just from just a language standpoint, but also from a cultural standpoint, right? Because you can speak a language, but that doesn't mean that you understand the culture, especially in a diverse place like Miami, Broward, Southeast Florida. Like, how has that kind of helped you in real estate?
Look, it's interesting. I actually learned the languages out of pure fear and need. You're put in an environment where you really need to successfully communicate with people. And that is business. It's people buy from people they like, they trust, and that human factor is central to it. So you can speak the language, but you might not speak the culture, which is different. I was lucky enough to work in over 25 countries extensively, and I still have very good relationships with people. And I try to be as much as a local as I can wherever I go. And that allows you to understand the culture. It's not just, you can communicate with somebody in broken English or broken Spanish, but if you don't understand the background, it's a little help. It's very little help. I'll just give you an example which is very close to me. I grew up in Argentina. Argentina is a country that more or less every 5 years we have a deep crisis, recession, inflation all together, and then there is a boom of growth, and then it happens again and again and again. And that gets burnt into people's DNA. You become very wary of everything. You see ghosts in every corner. And it is difficult to manage a transaction with somebody that has that background without understanding or knowing why or how to deal with it. You are honestly going to believe that the other side is crazy.
Yeah.
And that happens here, that happens in Israel, where I also lived for many years. And it's very important, the set of values. You know how many times we have people that relocate from, I'm just going to use Israel because it's very, the contrast is big. But they come here with the expectations that the processes here will be done in the same way that are done in Israel. And it doesn't work like that.
Right.
And it doesn't work. So setting expectations, it is very important. But in order to set expectations, you need to know what is that person expecting from the get-go. And that is knowing the culture. So yeah, again, I could speak 20 languages in here. The Florida, like everybody's here. Everybody's in Florida.
Yeah.
And honestly, I tell you, there are certain cultures that I have no experience with. And I see how difficult for me is to break that barrier. I call to read the people.
Yeah.
It's not just what you say, it's what you don't say.
Yeah, and how you say it.
And how you say it. So yeah, I think it's a challenge. It's one of the most beautiful things. I always tell my kids, listen, travel, know people, get a perspective of the world. And Florida is a great playground for that, for actually exercising everything you learned.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, so you said in Florida you could speak 20 languages, but you speak English, Hebrew, Spanish, and Portuguese. So I feel like in the Southeast Florida market, you've definitely checked a lot of boxes already, right? With South America and Israel and
I tried to learn Russian, really, really wanted to.
uh,
I couldn't. And then I tried to learn Chinese and I couldn't. So my window of opportunity has shut down.
yeah, yeah. Well, maybe
I mean, it really helps. It really helps. And even sometimes, my Portuguese is more limited than my Spanish, for example, but just to break the ice.
yeah,
And it's also the experience of establishing a link with somebody more at a more familiar level. You've been there, you know what they eat, where they go, where not to go. And it's a good thing. It builds rapport and it builds trust.
yeah, of course. And people like to do business with people that they like. So rapport is hugely important. One thing I wanted to ask a follow-up question on. So you said when you work with, you use the example of Israeli clients, things are done differently here than in Europe, and things in Europe are done differently than South America. So I'm just curious to hear, what are some common misconceptions or major differences that you see when working with buyers and sellers in Southeast Florida?
For a lot of foreign investors, for example, a misconception is there is no access to credit.
Mm-hmm.
You
Gotcha.
cannot finance if you are not a US national, which is, it leads to missing a lot of opportunities. So definitely that is one thing. The understanding of responsibility, of limitation of responsibility, the fact of understanding the implications of an LLC buying a company versus an individual buying a company. Even there are things that we do a lot of things with a handshake,
Mm-hmm.
the Mediterranean culture.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's different.
yeah,
It needs to be in writing. And I always say that ever since I started my journey towards the US, I was applying for my visa, my L1, when I was relocated because we came here relocated by the company I worked for.
right.
And we had a hiccup with the attorney that we hired to do my paperwork. And I decided enough is enough, I'm gonna do it myself. So I locked myself in an office for 5 days, and I went into this, SCIS website, and it's like,
Yeah,
let's learn about what is required
yeah,
to get this visa. And then I
yeah,
found out that there is a system. And as long as you follow the system and you check the boxes and you follow the order, and the system works for people that wants to work with the system,
yeah,
and things flow. It was to the point that when we got, this is just not related to real estate, but
yeah, go
it
ahead.
reflects a lot. When we got the notification from the US Embassy that we needed to go for an interview, I showed up to an interview with 600 pages that I wrote about, my job description and the company and this and the other. And I studied the whole thing because I didn't know what to expect. And when I got there, I don't know if somebody read it before or nobody read it, but all was there. And I was, okay, sir, can you please hand us your passport? And he's like, yes, here you are. They put a stamp. Okay, you're ready to go. I was like, yeah, but I've been studying for 2 weeks. So you better
Yeah, for your presentation. So let me.
So I think that it's actually understanding that you're coming into a new system, with different rules. You need to learn the rules, play by the rules, and things will be fine. And probably one of the biggest challenges we have in our activity is sometimes you need to kind of reset your client because there is so much advice around them.
Yeah,
And I don't want to say that it's bad advice, but some people are just good intentions, but lack of knowledge.
yeah,
And there are preconceptions and there's wrong information. So you need to stop and say, okay, this is how things are going to play. This is what you can do. This is what you cannot do. And that is probably the biggest impact of different cultures.
yeah.
Because if you want to get a credit, you want to get like a mortgage in Israel, oh my God, it's a very difficult process
Difficult. Yeah,
and much more subjective.
yeah. Everything's regulated and black on white, at least ever since 0809. I mean, everything Freddie,
Yeah.
Fannie Mac loans. It's
Actually, understanding, let's talk about fair house regulations.
yeah,
There are things you cannot do here.
yeah,
And it doesn't matter that back home they are acceptable.
yeah,
You just cannot do it. So there is a sort of an education process and an education role that we do as realtors. The
yeah,
same, when you come here to manage a company, manage an organization, many corporations are going to put you through a training of what can and cannot do, labor laws and ethic laws and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's 100% right. We definitely live in a very law and everything's black and white, right? Or most things are, at least, which
There are always gray areas and their way of doing things, but you need to understand the framework. I think there is one takeaway of the conversation is that there is a framework that you need to understand to be successful in whatever you want to do. You want to, buy a house, there's a framework. You want to become an investor, there is a framework. There are great tools for growing wealth that you need to know them. I think probably the greatest tool you have is the tax code.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But being able to sit for a coffee with a lender that is professional and he can explain to you all the possibilities available. It is maybe the difference between investing and not investing.
Yeah, 100%. So what's kind of your approach to, and it sounds like you guys are very like one-stop shop to provide a one-stop shop experience for your clients. What's your approach there? What services, I guess, do you have on hand to kind of outsource, right? Like once the time comes where if somebody internationally has tax questions and it gets to a point where, even though you might know the answer as a realtor, you probably shouldn't. I mean, what's your guys' approach there? Like, what kind of services do you have on hand and refer out once it gets, into the nitty and gritty, so to speak?
So number one is moving boxes. I already told you about this.
Good. Okay, great. Love it. Number one and most important. Yeah, gotcha. Love it.
Look, let's put it this way. It's a delicate situation. I always say that when you refer somebody out or you recommend somebody, you're also putting yourself out there. So first and foremost, we will never recommend someone that we haven't used personally. Okay. When you write in Facebook, somebody can recommend a plumber and people will recommend whomever they use, but it doesn't matter if they're good or not. It's just, I use this guy. So we don't want to be there. We had complicated situations in the past with recommending an inspection company.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, they come back 3 months later. It's like, oh, you recommended this company. They didn't see this, they didn't see that. Okay. So first and foremost, we encourage everybody to go out and shop for services. We do have a very good lender that does foreign citizen mortgages, and we have a very good that does, I call it plain vanilla W-2 1099, you can read it in 2 weeks. I have him and he's available. I'm going to give you his information if you want it. But I think the most important thing is that the buyer and the seller are the owners of the process. And you need to be very clear about this. This is an arm's length transaction. You are responsible of your own due diligence. I will facilitate it. You don't have a lawyer. You want me to help you find a lawyer? So here's the people I work with. But just go around, Google it, make some phone calls, ask your friends as well. You want a lender? I'm going to give you a lender. I have a great relationship with them. They deliver. I trust them, but go shop.
Yep.
So accountants, lawyers, lenders, contractors, general contractors.
Yeah.
Management companies.
Yeah. Movers and the work.
And there are things that are more like of the daily, but they're not less trivial. In the area we live, we still have many homes with polybutylene pipes.
Mm-hmm.
So we know there's 2 or 3 companies that are really good at it.
Yeah.
And they know the layouts of the houses and they're going to go in and out and they're just going to charge a fair amount of money. And they're not going to do a disaster. You will be living with the plumbers for a month.
Yeah.
So we do that, and the electrician and the guy that will come do an AC. AC tends to crock 24 hours before a closing.
Yeah.
And you need a guy you can call.
Yeah.
But with the industry, we have very long standing relationship with the photographer.
Yeah.
And you want to list your property, and today is the 18th of June.
Yep.
You want to do it now. You want tomorrow, you want to have it listed. As long as you can say, I'm going to organize my house and declutter and make it all nice and pretty. Tomorrow morning, I have a photographer taking pictures. Yep. And they're great quality. And they're kind of the base of our marketing package, and the videos and the drones. So everything is moving very fast.
Yeah. And you need people that can keep up with, not in 3 weeks, but like 24, 48-hour turnaround time. Yeah, that's definitely correct. My next question would kind of revolve a little about the market over there. Southeast Florida, especially Miami, has gotten a lot of publicity, let's call it, over the last 5 years. I think it's called the New York of the South now, or Wall Street of the South. It's turning more and more into a hub for financial institutions, other companies. So I'm curious to kind of learn from you, David, how has kind of like the real estate market over there changed since maybe you got into real estate about 6 years ago? I'm sure it's quite the interesting ride.
I think that it has changed as think about Miami before 1990, think about Miami 2000.
Okay. Yeah.
That is how much it has changed. But when you talk about the real estate market, and I always like to make a pause and say we cannot talk about it because the real estate market is so hyper local that the reality that what would apply in West Broward, it won't apply by the beach. We have amazing school district. It's the growth engine. This is what gives resiliency to the market. People that relocate to Florida, they want to send their kids to a good school. They don't have any options. So this provides a big rebound layer to this very local market that other areas don't enjoy. There are other areas where you don't have that. And then you go to Brickell. And Brickell is affected by the movement of the corporations.
Yeah.
So every analysis has to be very local. I think that if you want to do it responsibly, I love data. I love working with data. I told you strategic marketing. So I follow my numbers and talk to my lenders and see what happens with the applications of the mortgages and the rates and this and the other. And I like following the trends. Then you go online and you read these articles. Real estate market has corrected 20%. Where? How? When? What? Come on.
Yeah, not over there. Not in Miami.
Like one thing is, I don't know, Missouri, and something else is, where we work and live. Overall, I think that trend-wise, it's very important to consider that Miami-Dade and Broward are gateways to the United States for many foreign people. People want to come here. We're always looking for a new place for vacation. I tell my wife, we live where people come to vacation.
Yeah.
But they don't just come for vacations. They want to come here. They want to stay here. They want to open a business. They want to buy a house. And that is great. This is so much more than many other states throughout the US. So that is very important. We still have a very positive inflow of people moving into Florida. We have construction lagging behind horribly. The inventory levels, because of the rates, it's a little bit better now. I think that we are about the 4 month of inventory, something like that, but still not enough.
Yeah.
So lack of inventory together with positive growth of population, it is really supporting prices. But we also need to talk about the other not so pretty side of the real estate market in Florida, which is there is a lot of displacement, there is a lot of gentrification. There are a lot of areas that if you look back 5 years and you look at them now, you wouldn't recognize them.
Yeah.
And people, younger families, people on a fixed income because they are retired or whatever reason, they are feeling the pressure.
Yeah, for sure.
We are relocating a lot of clients to Central North Florida, to Georgia as well, to North Carolina. People are leaving Florida as well. So that is something that we really need to consider. We're intermediaries in this business. So either we're going to sell or we're going to buy, but we really need to understand where Florida is heading.
Where do you think it's heading in your full disclaimer? Nobody has a crystal ball, but
I believe that there is an undercover affordability crisis. The Floridian worker is finding very challenging to secure property. If you cannot buy, you're going to rent, but the rent prices are in a very weird. I don't even know if I'm going to call it equilibrium point, but in the one side you have investors that went into the market at very expensive prices throughout the pandemic, that they really need to keep the rents high. But inflation is real. So the supermarket inflation, the fuel inflation, the transportation inflation, it hits real people every single day. So not everybody has $4,000 to go find a 3-2.
Yeah.
right? So what
Yeah.
is the option? If you cannot buy and you cannot rent, you need to leave.
Are you seeing people leave Florida as a whole, or you said they're just relocating to central northern Florida where things might even
And there's also people living as a whole.
Yeah,
I mean,
gotcha.
you will find more affordable places in Florida, but there is a paradox because you will go to, I don't know, let's go Northport, okay, or areas like that, where
Yeah,
you can buy a 2,500 square feet home in about $450,000.
yeah,
So you tell me about work, you tell me about school district.
yeah,
I don't know. But I believe that many areas are not yet there. The quick thing is to build a house. It's going to take you 8 months. You just end to end, you build it, it's there, go use it. But the rest of the life of the people, it's an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for Florida, I believe, to develop those areas
right.
because it's kind of, we're getting population that comes from higher markets, New York, California still. You're still selling a small apartment for more money than you would buy a single family home here. So
Yeah,
that is putting pressure in this local market and it's expelling other people that will go somewhere else. So the ability would have to be how we retain those people that are not going to stay living in Brickell or in Miami or in Cooper City or I don't know where.
yeah,
And how we retain them in Florida, make
yeah,
sure they have work, that they have good schools and stuff like that.
yeah.
And just take a look at the map of Florida, like 70% of the territory, I think is nothing out there.
Yeah, yeah. Once you get 5 miles away from the coasts, it gets pretty sparsely populated pretty quickly. Yeah. If you take the land route from where I live in Fort Myers to Orlando and you go through like the Clewiston area, I mean,
Yeah.
if I send my family in Germany a picture of like how it looks there, they're like, that's not Florida. There's no way that's Florida. There's not even palm trees there, So like,
Yeah.
so
This is what we live in Cooper City
yeah,
and we're relocated here. Our friends and family was like, oh, David and Ronnie, they moved to Miami.
yeah,
For the first year or so, everybody would come visit and stay with us, believing that we were in Miami. And then they discover we live in Cooper City. It's like, oh no, this is not Miami. They never
yeah.
come.
This is not what I saw in the postcards. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you 100%.
Yeah. No,
But,
I think it's a great opportunity overall for Florida. It's always good to have an inflow of people. The big question is, what are we going to do with them? What opportunities are we going to generate at the global, level, the big picture? And it's good for real estate. Things are happening, Florida is very friendly for investors and companies. And as well, the fact that we speak so many languages. Imagine it's very difficult for somebody who is a foreigner to come to a country where you don't know, you don't speak the language and try to start something. I
yeah,
think that Florida is friendly in that regards, and we should really leverage on all those factors.
yeah,
But all in all, going strong, always monitoring what's happening with the rates, what's happening with the feds.
yeah. We'll see. Hopefully we get one by the end of, hopefully we get one lowering by Christmas.
I
that's a
am
Christmas present
partially I'm with
from
you,
Powell.
but I'm also very aware of we still have a lot of unsatisfied demand, and you see it in the market. I
Yeah,
think that I call it the taxi cab economy.
yeah,
Is street level. When you go to a place you don't know, you take a cab, or you used to take a cab, now you take an Uber. And then you have that short conversation with the driver and you understand how things are going. In a 10 minutes drive, you get the feel of the street,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
here, when you put a property in an attractive price in the market, people flood that
Mhm.
open house, or what are you doing?
Yeah,
There is people in need of buying houses, and there is a very high sensitivity to price and to rates.
yeah,
So also we need to consider that I believe that people react slower to changes in rates, or the market reacts slower to changes in rates than what it would react to just pricing. Okay.
yeah. It takes,
So I believe that, what we are going to see is if you touch the rate a little bit, and that is going to take a lot of those buyers that says we're waiting, we're not going to buy now, and then they go out, and the seller immediately will react to prices. When you are selling your home and you get 40 people in your open house on a Saturday, and then by Monday you have 8 offers, you jack up the price.
yeah,
That's it. And that happens in half an hour conversation. Call me old school, old fashioned, whatever, but the old saying, marry the property, date the rate.
yeah,
I think it's very relevant. I think that if you can afford to buy now, you better do it.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I tell all my buyers clients, or when I get friends and family ask me if now's a good time, 100%, because as soon as those rates come down even a little bit, everybody that's waiting on the sidelines is gonna jump and on the opportunity. And like you said, I mean, that process alone, right? Like 8 offers, it's gonna probably result in more properties selling above list. And yeah, 100%, 100%. And people, because I do investment properties too, and I've bought a couple this year and doing a 1031 right now. And some people are kind of looking at me crazy. Like, I thought it's a down market or rates are so high. I was like, well, to me, now's the best opportunity because sellers are getting a little bit more desperate. Property are sitting longer. You offer below list, you might just get a good deal. So yeah, 100% with you there. And but also on the other side, kind of what you were getting at, got to be careful not to lower it too soon. But I think the Fed has seen that as well, and they're obviously going from 5 to 6 rates cuts this year to maybe one. So we'll see how it all plays out. But at the
Look,
end of
I'm very wary of inflation. I grew up in inflationary environments. I know how difficult it is to manage. Countries that have the most experience with inflation cannot manage it. It is sticky. It takes time. In an economy as big as the US, the numbers of the month really don't matter. So we could be in a situation feeling good and saying, okay, things are getting under control. And then 3 months down the road, things will look a lot different. So I'm conservative in general when it comes to inflation, but I do always look at the labor market. I think that more than rates, employment it is key. At
yeah,
least in this area, employment is key. And you will talk about 3 different countries in one, because the market, I call it the sub 500 market. Okay, it behaves in a way, and then you have the mid market from the 500 to 1.5 million, behaves in a totally different way. And then the luxury over 2 million market is totally a different animal. So you need to work today with 3 sets of strategies for each market.
yeah,
You got the people that is really, really affected by inflation. There is a people that's struggling to remain mid class or upper mid class on that 500 to 1.5 million, that today are paying $1.5 million for a home that 3 years ago was 800,000, and they need a little win. And then you have the other market that has just been unaffected by the inflation.
yeah. Hyper luxury.
Yes.
Just yeah, right.
Listen.
Yeah. Well, David, to kind of wrap it all up, I know you deal with a lot of people relocating, whether in Florida, out of state, or even out of the country. What would be your number one advice you would give somebody looking to relocate to Miami, Broward, Southeast Florida area?
Call us before you talk to anybody.
Call you? Okay, great. Yep. I wouldn't have expected any other answer. Great answer. Free moving boxes when they call you. So
Absolutely.
that's great. And then of course, we'll link all your social media and your website in the description. But if someone wants to get in touch with you directly for relocation, buying, selling, investing, free moving boxes, whatever it may be, how can they get in touch with you, David?
754-610-2182. 754-610-2182. Or they can always email us to david@agentronnie.realtor. That's David at agent, AGENT.realtor, REALTOR. No comma at the end, just realtor.
Okay.
Realtor. And that's it. And for Christ's sake, write
Yeah.
realtor properly.
Yeah. Well, awesome. David, thank you so much for your time. One thing that stood out to me, you can definitely tell that you have a business background because you talk about real estate completely different than someone that doesn't have a real estate or a business background, right? So you can definitely tell you see it way more transactional, kind of being cool, calm, and collected versus like emotional, which in my book is a good thing, right? Because buyers and sellers are already as emotional as can be. So it's our job to reel them in a little bit. And I think me talking to you, I mean, that's one of the things you're like super, super good at, like very knowledgeable, and that builds confidence and that keeps you calm in tough situations, which, like I said, want to thank you again. Thanks for your time, and Sai to Ronnie, and happy selling over there on the East Coast.
Thank you very, very much for the opportunity, for the time, for being able to put the word out there and kind of, dispel some myths about real estate. And we're always happy to help people and to give information and to make everybody feel more comfortable about the decision making. And again, just if I have a closing phrase, I don't believe that we as humans are capable of selling anything to anybody. I think that the sell happens when the minds meet, and you cannot tell a person what they need. You can't tell a person, this is the house you need. Oh, I didn't know. I've been looking for a house for 6 months. It is about conducting that process, and that's why probably I have an approach which might sound a little bit different from the rest. But we're all adults. You're buying a house, you know what you want, ideally what you can afford, and we're just there to facilitate it and make it happen.
Yeah, awesome. Good, great advice. And thank you so much, David. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Take good care and good luck with your investments.
Thanks, David.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I hope you enjoyed our discussions and gained valuable knowledge to enhance your home ownership journey here in Southwest Florida. A big thank you to our incredible guests and of course to you, our listeners, for joining us. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to connect, feel free to reach out. You can find us on Instagram at KevinTremmel_real estate, on Facebook at Kevin Tremmel Real Estate, or visit our website, kevintremmel.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback is crucial and we're always eager to hear from you. Until next time, this is Kevin Tremmel, your host, signing off. See you on the next episode.